Hey guys, welcome to another video. It's me, Amirul, certified professional coach, a self-taught Bruneian photographer based in Malaysia. Before I start today's video, just a quick reminder for those who probably watched my previous video who's about to start their own YouTube channel right now. Do be careful with your camera on the tripod. Just make sure that you set everything up before you set your camera on your tripod, because what happened to me recently is that my camera, which was on the tripod, I bumped it with my lighting umbrella and it just fell straight down, lens first, headshot, lens shot, and it broke the lens hood. So make sure this doesn't happen to you. And thankfully my lens is still working. It's just a bit stiff, towards the wider end, but it's fine. But please don't repeat the same mistake as I do, and be careful with your camera, and while setting everything up, just be careful. Alright, so moving on to today's video. Today's video is really all about knowing the exposure triangle, is to help you step further, taking control of the output of your images really. And it doesn't stop there. It can be applied to videos as well. And the same principle applies, although there are different formulas that you use in video as compared to photography, but the basics is still within that exposure triangle. Alright, it's also because I put a poll on my Instagram. Do give me a follow here or up here, whether people or my followers wanted for me to do a video on exposure triangle or a lens review. So 66% voted that they wanted to know about the exposure triangle, and I thought to myself, hey, that's a good topic, and to continue my channel, I feel good making this video, because if this video was available to me before, in terms of going down to my level of thinking at that point in time, where I just knew how to turn my camera on and just shoot, just press that shutter button, and that's pretty much it. And regardless of the output, whether it was blurry or whether it was like full of grains, that didn't really matter at that point in time. And I felt, after a while shooting that way, I felt like I got bored. I was frustrated with my photos, and I actually stopped holding my camera for a while, and I just focused on life. And I hope today's video will help you hold on to your camera and be the master of the output that you produce from your camera. Alright, before moving on further to some more examples, in order to adjust all these elements, if you want to adjust all these elements, you've got to get out of the auto drive mode and you got to go into manual. It'll be labeled M. So that's where you are able to control each of these three elements to your photos, to your videos. That's where you're able to do it. So let's get started. Alright, so there are three elements that makes up the the exposure triangle. If not, it wouldn't be a triangle, it'd be a square or rectangle. They have the same sides. It would be a circle, or but it's a triangle because there are three elements, basic elements that's fundamental in exposing your photo, exposing your shot in your camera. Alright, so there are three elements. The first one is aperture, secondly is your shutter speed, thirdly is your ISO, and we'll go one by one. Alright, so we'll start off with aperture. Aperture is basically the amount of light that's allowed to enter or hit your sensor inside your camera. What actually controls it is your aperture blades that's moving inside of the lens. So camera companies will make lenses with different apertures. Sometimes they're fixed, sometimes they're variable. It depends on the type of lenses, and usually it's denoted by an F. So if you see a box, so for example, I have this lens. It says it's a 50 millimeters f1.8. So the aperture is the f1.8. So it's usually labeled. So if you want to know the aperture, it's by the F number that's on the lens. Alright, so how would you know that this lens is allowing a lot of light? It's usually by a small F number. So if it's f1.2, it allows more light in compared to an f4 lens. Alright, let's say the situation is dark and you wanna expose it a little bit more. You go to a lower F number. Alright, if your lens is on f4, you move it to f1.8, for example. Alright, so it allows us to control what everyone loves, which is bokeh. The lower the F number, the more bokeh you will see. That's dependent on how far your background is from your subject, and your focal length, and the compression and whatnot. So that's a topic for another day, but basically a smaller F number allows more light in. Alright, moving on to the second one, which is shutter speed. So shutter speed is how fast your camera captures the motion. Alright, that's pretty much it really. That's how fast your camera captures motion. There's two ways in adjusting your shutter speed. Alright, so if you have a higher shutter speed, that means your camera will capture or freeze the motion. If let's say you're trying to take a picture of a car and every time you press the button it's blurry, so you look at your camera screen, it's 1 out of 100 and it's still blurry. So what you want to do is increase your shutter speed to 1 out of 2000 and you'll freeze that car. You know, for example, if it's just a normal car, it'll definitely freeze everything. But if it's like a Formula 1 car, you know, you adjust it like that. Alright, the higher the shutter speed, the better chances of you to freeze that motion. Alright, if you're taking portraits, you might want to go with the basic rule, which is 1 over your focal length and faster to prevent any motion in your subjects. Alright, so that's one of the basic rules that in terms of shutter speed in relation to the focal length that you have on your lens. Alright, so other ways to use shutter speed in your photography is in terms of long exposure photography, where the shutter speed is 30 seconds or more. Yeah, so that's where you're able to get the smooth water surface. That's where you're able to tell the camera, take as much time, take as long as 30 seconds to capture this photo, to allow your camera to capture all that light, to expose the stars in the dark, to allow the water to smoothen, you know. The third one that we're going to talk about is ISO. Now ISO is basically the sensitivity of your camera towards light. Each camera has a different ISO range. Some have, you know, like 50 to 25,600 ISO, some have a minimum of 100, some 200, so it depends on your cameras. The lower the ISO number, the less sensitive it is to light. The higher the number, the more sensitive it is. So it's pretty simple, but there are, you know, consequences to having a low ISO and also a higher ISO. So lower ISO will give you a cleaner image. Overuse this ISO, meaning to say that if you go beyond a certain amount of ISO, for example, you go to 25,600 ISO and you shoot a portrait and that person's face is gonna be full of noise. Noise is like those grainy stuff or particles that show up in your photo afterwards. You know, normally people would like to use the lowest ISO possible in every situation. Almost. Yeah, so it depends on how you balance these three things to expose your photo the way you want it, the way you see it beforehand. Yeah, so understanding these three basic elements will help you create your own unique look. I hope you find the video helpful in terms of helping you move from that point and click to someone who thinks about these three elements first before you used up that shutter count for your camera. Yeah, I know it's gonna be difficult at first. I've been there, you know, like, okay, it takes me a while to adjust and to find the right exposure. But with practice, a lot of photo shoots, a lot of, you know, outings and whatnot, where you get to practice all these different scenarios that you're into, the exposure triangle will become an unconscious competence for you. Okay, so that's a coaching word. You know, it becomes more natural, so you don't have to, you know, take out a book and, you know, okay, what shutter speed or what, you know, what aperture or what shutter speed should I use in this scenario. So it becomes automatic and it makes your workflow faster. It makes you capture moments just like that. All right, so that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. If you find today's video helpful, do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And also, if you'd like, you can click the bell button and, you know, be notified of the latest videos that I have for you. Alright, so that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.